All right, we are going to go ahead and dive in. Hey, so I wanted to let you guys know that next week we are scheduled for production. So that means that the videos that you're used to seeing, they're coming back. So I'm happy to announce that. It's been a bit of a whirlwind, but we've slowly made our way back, and hopefully next week we'll be back in full production. So that's what we're looking forward to. Just wanted to let you guys know that. Today, I'm going to talk briefly about the mother wound because I know that, as I said last week, this is where we're headed in this direction, and we are building our content around this subject because this is a big one that is really sort of ramping up, and particularly as it relates to the um, black and brown mother wound of women of color. And so this is something that a lot of people um, are still kind of in the dark about, and they may have heard of the mother wound, but they are not sure if they struggle with it or what the actual symptoms or the the struggles with the mother wound would actually look like. And so today I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and then we'll talk about next week how I'm going to delve into my own personal story and how I was able to heal those toxic emotions related to that. So what is the mother wound? Well, this is how I explain it. I've heard it explained in a lot of different ways, but I essentially research has shown that the mother wound is actually an attachment disorder, or it's an attachment wound. It's an issue with attachment that prevents the person from forming a secure attachment system. So, and this is often due to repeated experiences, typically negative experiences or traumatic experiences that destroy the basic trust um, in relationships. And so that is where you see the wound emanating from. Now, as it relates to black and brown women, and so particularly I'll talk about the black mother wound, we see that a lot of this is rooted in survival parenting that originated from events such as colonialism, the European colonization campaign, genocide campaign, slavery, Jim Crow, Juan Crow. And so, based on that sort of historical foundation, black and brown parents uh, did what you call survival parenting. And so it wasn't really about trying to meet your emotional needs, like, okay, what's your interest? What do you want to do when you grow up? All those kinds of things. Or, oh, it's okay. I see you. I hear you. I hear what you're saying, how that impacts you. It was none of that kind of stuff. It was just like, you keep crying. I'm going to give you something to cry about. That kind of thing. You need to straighten up and fly right. The world out there is against you. They're not for you. Those kinds of parenting. You need to be looking out for this because these are the things that are going to keep you safe. It was about survival. How can I keep you alive? And so parenting rooted in that kind of that kind of foundation brings about a lot of different messages that don't necessarily they're not attuned to your feelings, your emotions, and your interests, and those kinds of things. It's more about uh, don't trust this person. What happens here stays here. Those kinds of things, behaviors that support the mother wound. Now, I know particularly for me, and I'll speak from my own experience, there were lots of beatings that were out of proportion to what you would deem as something that's worthy of a punishment. Something for me as simple as looking at playing cards. My mom swore up and down that I was playing with playing cards. I'd never even seen playing cards before. And a neighborhood friend was showing me those. And it was stuff like that to me was just really petty, but it stuck with me because it was very traumatic to receive a beating for something like that. Isolation, invalidation. You can be sitting there crying, and your parents can be looking right at you, and it seemed that the natural response would be, "What's the matter?" But they just look at you and walk off or say, "Oh, you'll be all right," that kind of thing. So those kinds of things is what lays the foundation. It creates that mother wound. Teachings. I know most of the teachings that I endured were biblical, religious teachings, scriptural teachings, things that taught me that I would be beaten with many stripes if I didn't obey, or, those kinds of things. So essentially, the wound comes from the lack of safety and security and trust in the parental relationship. And it is also lacking in the opportunities to build the necessary foundation that you need with in terms of calm and safety and the ability to trust in relationships that provide those nurturing experiences. And so that's where the wound comes from. And because the wound was created in a relationship, healing has to come from a healthy relationship that offers those opportunities for you to be able to practice calming yourself, soothing yourself, and creating balance for yourself in the context of relational interactions or social situations where you're dealing with other people. And so those healthy attachment behaviors increase the neurohormone of oxytocin, which moves you closer to social interaction. It creates that bonding effect. And so when you're able to engage in this sort of the requirement for repetitive behaviors to build those healthy relationships, when you do that, that oxytocin increases and it moves you closer to social interaction. And that's where you start to get that experience building those healthy relationships, so that you can reverse those triggers that sort of bring up for you fight, flight, freeze responses that sort of stick there, and they don't really move anywhere. But as you continue to work through those problems that are rooted in unhealthy relational interaction, then those things start to turn around. So one of the ways that you do this is you build the attachment one small step at a time. The steps are really they happen in such tiny increments that a lot of times it can be hard to recognize that you're actually making change. And some people can't recognize that they're making change. They don't feel that they're getting anywhere. And so it's really in that flow of the that process that sometimes people will say, well, nothing's working, so why am I doing this? And that's typically when you see people give up, maybe drop out of therapy or stop, their self-help programs or their coaching programs or whatever. But typically, I think the problem is not understanding that the first thing that you have to do is create this repetitive engagement in rituals and practices that cue you in to what safety looks like, what reliability, what those things look like. And then once you get used to the reliability of having a conversation about something, people showing up on time, and meeting their scheduled appointments. Once you get used to that, then you move to the next step of actually being able to trust in the safety of the relationship itself. And so I think that that's where a lot of people don't even make it there because they don't get that repetitive experience of, having become face to face with reliability, with safety, and those things becoming a constant in their lives. And so that is really what it takes. So the consistent experience of reliability and safety, and then safety of the relationship. So the process of meeting people consistently. All right, guys. So that's in a nutshell what I wanted to talk to you about today. Next week, I'm going to talk to you about how I healed my toxic wounds and emotions as it relates to the mother wound. And let's see what else. Yeah, and so that's pretty much what I'm going to talk about. We'll talk about some more things in terms of the neurobiology, how the mother wound is rooted in more of those types of situations, and we'll talk about some safe practices that can help open you up to exploring ways to begin to lean into healthy relationships, or even just define relationships or situations that may give you the practice of getting used to people who have healthy boundaries, people who show up, they do the work, they mean what they say, and you can rely on their word. And so, getting used to those practices will actually help build a foundation for you to actually start trusting in those types of relationships. And so I can't wait to share that with you guys. We'll be back up full production next week. And so I'm excited. Yeah, it's been a long time coming. Well, at least it seems that way to me. But we'll be back. And so I'll see you next time.